It's nearly that time of year when spooky ghouls and ghosts come out to play. Yes, it's nearly Halloween. And so here at History's Forgotten People, we're going to look at a couple of medieval mysteries with a spooky twist. This one is of the Green Children of Woolpit. The story goes like this. William of Newburgh tells us that sometime during the reign of King Stephen, so between 1135 and 1154, they rocked up in the village of Woolpit in Suffolk near Bury St Edmunds, next to one of the wolf pits which gave the village its name. This wouldn't have been weird at all, except they wore unfamiliar clothing, spoke an unknown language, and weirdest of all, had green skin. Ralph of Coggeshall then tells us the children were taken to the home of Sir Richard de Calne, who was a local knight and landowner who lived about 6 miles away. All sources agree the children were then offered various forms of food, all of which they refused. They didn't eat until they spotted some raw broad beans in Richard de Calne's garden, which they scoffed down hungrily. The knight took the children in as there appeared to be no one else to look after them, and eventually they began to eat other kinds of food and they gradually lost their green skin colour. It was agreed the children needed to be baptised, but sadly the little boy was very sickly and he died not long after. The girl was given the name Agnes and she was taught English. This was crucial to her version of events, and she was able to tell Sir Richard about where she and her brother had apparently come from. Agnes told a mysterious tale about the land where she was from, that it was known as St. Martin's Land, and that the sun never shone fully, but that it was like constant twilight. Ralph of Coggeshall adds on that everything there was green. Is anyone else getting flashbacks to the Wizard of Oz? Agnes said that while she and her brother were out tending to their father's cattle, they heard a sudden loud noise. William of Newburgh decides this was like the bells of St Edmund's Abbey, and being nosy children, they decided to investigate the sound. Ralph changes the story slightly in that the children followed the cattle into a cave, and then followed the sound of the bells they heard. Either way, after following the sound, the young boy and girl found themselves standing next to Woolpit's wolf pit without their cattle. Agnes was kept on in Sir Richard's household and employed as a servant, but she was considered to be very wanton and impudent. Sources differ a little on the rest of Agnes's life, but she grew up and married either a man from King's Lynn, where William says she still lived when he wrote the story, or a royal official and clergyman named Richard Barr, according to Ralph. So, what was going on? Had aliens accidentally dropped a couple of children on their way past medieval Britain? Was there a secret underground society of green people who occasionally poked their head out of caves in the English countryside? Or could there be a more rational explanation? The first explanation is that it simply didn't happen, at least not in real life. The tale may be based on a much older folklore story. Ancient beliefs for underground tunnels and cave systems were always one of them being a way to access an other world, sometimes a place inhabited by gods or fae. We can understand, even as modern humans, how it would feel to be in a cave with little or no light, and how it might have felt like a portal to a mysterious place. The children travelling through the cave to the upper world was a common motif repeated in many other folklore tales. It may also be significant that the children come through at harvest time. If we consider the children to be a metaphor for the seasons, the boy dying could match the death of summer, and the girl recovering and growing up could be the harvest itself being brought in, the culmination of the efforts of the village. There is also some evidence that the name of the place they apparently came from, St. Martin's Land, may be connected with St. Martin himself. While the sources are thin, it's possible St. Martin was connected with death, often shown on the psychopomp of a horse and holding a stick, which symbolised resurrection. Death was a favourite theme for medieval writers. In this case, the children are life and death, and their skin change could represent them passing from life into death or the other way round. Even the beans they ate were connected to this theme, as beans were seen as the food of the dead. Further ideas for the theme of the children's tale include the fact they were outsiders. Some people have suggested the story is a way of talking about Britain's ancient past, and the children are an allegory for the British Celts being invaded by the Anglo-Saxons or Romans. It's also possible the story is more xenophobic than that and is suggestive of Welsh, Irish or Scottish people being forcibly anglicised. The boy dying represents the identity of these people, in which he would literally rather die than become English. And finally, the story could be a commentary of the supposed threat of outsiders to Christianity, especially when looking at the description of Agnes, how she was wanton and impudent. But could there possibly be an actual historical basis to this story? Another more rational explanation for the account of the children could be that they were Flemish immigrants, a theory offered up by writer Paul Harris in 1998. Many Flemish people had settled in England during the early 12th century, but by the 1150s they were being persecuted, and even peaceful Flemish settlers were being treated horrifically in certain areas. It's possible the parents of the Green Children may well have been killed, but the two children were able to escape, probably from a village nearby called Fornham St. Martin. Bewildered and hungry, they came across Woolpit, and their Flemish style of dress and language must have seemed confusing, and their strange green colour could be the result of a form of anemia from not eating properly. However, there are some holes to be poked in this theory, despite it having some convincing ideas. The first is that the children were brought to Richard de Calne, an educated member of the gentry. It's highly unlikely he would not have recognised the language the children spoke if they did indeed speak Flemish. The second is the idea about the children's green skin. If it really had been from malnutrition, there would have been a lot more people walking around looking green at the time. But it's possible the green skin could also have been jaundice. When some people have very severe jaundice, the yellow pallor the skin takes on can look a little green. This could possibly be linked with the children only eating beans, as jaundice is caused by the liver not being able to process waste as effectively. As enticing as this realistic idea is, it's actually much more likely this is merely a story with a few threads of truth. There are parts of the tale that do ring true, and it's possible that a couple of children wandered into a strange village and may have been the children of immigrants, dressed strangely and speaking a foreign language. But the more fantastical elements of the tale, or their green skin and limited diet, are likely part of an older folklore that got woven into the recollections of the villagers. Either way, the Green Children of Woolpit is still a really good medieval mystery, and it has enough to feel truthful and enough that it might not be. So what do you guys think? Completely made up creepy story, or do you think there's some truth to it? Either way, if you see anyone looking a little bit green lately, just maybe stay clear for a while. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any new documentaries.